So enter a score. Okay, 10. Ew, it blew up. I should not have converted it to a float. I need to correct my code. You see this line that says score is equal to float score? I need to actually get rid of that line. I'm going to comment it out. And the reason why is the write function wants us to pass in a string, not a number. So I should not have converted it to a string. When I'm tired of entering scores, I'll do a -1. It didn't do it. That's because now that it's no longer a number, I need to change my comparison statement down here. So where it says if score is equal to -1, I need to make that if score is equal quote -1, and that's because we're dealing with strings. There should have been a better way to handle this. If I thought about this a little bit more before doing it, I would have done it slightly differently. All right, now if I go look for that file name, if I go to search and look for myscores.txt, I'll see that data that I just entered. Or maybe I won't. What did I do wrong? What did I do different this time that I didn't close the file? Correct. So I need to put sfile.close. And there's my numbers. So we could write another program that would open this file, read them in line by line, and process them. I want to make sure everybody got this part done first before I do that.
It won't let me do -1 to break it. Go back to code.
If it's not letting you do -1, it's because we had to make a change to let it support strings. Make your code look like that with quotes around the -1. Not your fault. I had to make that change in order to get it to work too. Why did we have to do that? Because we didn't convert score to a float, so we can't compare it against a float.
So it's really taking -1 as a string.
Right,
okay.
right, yeah. All right, now let's open that file for reading. Well, let's go back and look at the slide. They're calling this a file handle. Other languages call it different things. But this is a handle to the file. We opened the file, now we have a handle to it. We wrote out a bunch of stuff and we closed it. If we want to open the file for reading, we're going to use "R" rather than "W". Change this thing from done to done writing, because now we're going to open it for reading. sfile is equal to open. Let's give it the same file name, myscores.txt. But open it for reading. We need the R. I'm going to do a while true again with a break, so if we ever read in that -1, we'll bail out.
It added the -1 to my list of scores.
I put it in the wrong place. I should have put this if statement before we wrote it, and then it would not. I mean, yours is fine.
Oh no, mine is where yours is right now.
Right, exactly. You don't need to change it. But if we did not want to write out that -1, we should have done our if statement before the write. So don't change it. So now we need to read the line of data, and then we're going to process it. Here's his silly word was the line. I don't really think I like that. Let's just call it data is equal to sfile.readLine. The first thing we need to do is make sure that we're not at the end of the file. If the length of the data that we just read in is 0, then we're totally done, and we need to just break. If what we just read in equal to -1, we want to break. If data is equal to -1, let's break. Otherwise, let's print that what we just read. Now, a little bit of weirdness is that when I wrote to the file, I had to put that /n there. My guess is that there's a read line command, a write line command, where I could have avoided having to do that. But then when I read it in, that /n was actually part of our data. That's why we're getting all these blank lines when we print this stuff out. Usually you don't want that carriage return to be part of your data. Usually you want to strip that out. So here's how we would do that. Above this line, or below, it doesn't matter. Above this print statement, let's do this. Data equals data dot strip. I may have the syntax wrong. Let me figure that out. Okay, that's better. What strip does is it removes what's known as the white space. Tabs, spaces, or carriage returns from it. Without it, there was a blank line between each line of output because it was including that /n at the end. So if we wanted to make this program, we should close the file. I didn't close the file. So above that done reading, do sfile.close. If we wanted to add all these numbers and store them in a total, how would we change this code? There's a couple things we're going to need to do, but the first thing that the program needs to do is what? It needs to have a variable to hold the total.
Could you put it in a list and then add the contents of the list together? Or?
Yeah, so that would work. We could add them all to a list and then we could sum the list. That's actually a great way to do it. I was going to show you something else, but let's do it that way. In order to make our list, let's declare a list of scores up at the top. I'm just going to call it L. It's good enough. L is equal to an empty list. I just added this line. And then each time we read a new piece of data in, let's append it to the list. L.append. You're thinking like a programmer. This is cool. L.append that data to our list. That's the other thing we just added. And then at the very bottom, let's print our list. So just add print L. Or print list equals. Okay, it included my -1. And that's because I should have stripped it before I started doing the comparison. So cut this line that says data is equal to data.strip and move it to right above that first if statement. Just yank that line, data is equal to data.strip, and move it up there. So you just saw what I did. I took that data.strip line and I moved it above the if statement. You don't need to keep it here. There we go. Now we have a list. It's real easy to get the sum of that list. Total is equal to sum parentheses L. It would add all those numbers up. But really, they should have been turned into floats before we added them to the list. Right now, they're not floats.
In between all of my we just read, I have like it prints the list now. Maybe is it because I put in
Let me see. Oh, yeah, that's fine. It's just print it each time. I put it down at the bottom here. Alrighty, so one last thing we ought to do is before we append it, we should convert the data to a float or an int. So right above that print statement or right below it, we're going to do one more thing. Data is equal to float data. This is the last thing we just added. And the reason we put that there is so that our list is actually a list full of numbers and we could actually do math on them.
what was it treating it as before? We said it as
Strings.
strings.
So, which is great, but you can't do, math on them. Yeah. All right. I'm going to remove some of these comments.
Did not convert string to floats. That's not my problem. Why it's saying that.
We may not have our strip command in there. Get that there.
Isn't it?
Well, move that. It's not going to fix it, but move it above the first if statement. But it's not going to fix it. Type in 1, 2, 3, -1.
Guess what time it was.
We just read. I don't know what I thought it read. Interesting. Okay. Anybody getting syntax errors? let's make a Dropbox for this. We'll be doing more stuff with files. For example, we could write a program that will read in from a file and it'll follow all the commands in that file to control a turtle or something like that.